The controversial 2022 Nobel Prize for Economics, why it's sparking outrage and debate. The Nobel Prize Award for Economics went to 3 people in 2022, and it has sparked debates across the field. You might have heard of Ben Bernanke, a big name in the economic world. But 2 other winners were highly influential in their field, Douglas Diamond and Philip Dybvig. While not as well known to the public, their work was critical in understanding the causes and implications of the 2008 financial crisis, which was a huge surprise to most economists. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly did Diamond and Dybvig do? Well, their 1983 paper, Bank Runs, Deposit Insurance and Liquidity, was seen as a game-changer in the field of economics. And it was this paper, along with Bernanke's non-monetary effects of the financial crisis and the propagation of the Great Depression, that earned them this prestigious award. But, as with any award, there's always some controversy. Critics argue that Diamond and Dybvig's work was merely formalizing something that was already well known, while others question whether Bernanke's recognition was more for his role as a policymaker rather than for his research. A look at Diamond and Dybvig's work, the paper Bank Runs, Deposit Insurance and Liquidity by Diamond and Dybvig, published in 1983, is a concise and straightforward economic theory paper that provides a groundbreaking analysis of banking and bank runs. It may be considered too simplistic to be published nowadays, lacking the typical sensitivity analysis and number crunching. Nonetheless, the paper's message has broad implications for the industry. The analysis by Diamond and Dybvig centers on the trade-off between liquidity and returns, which is not merely financial, but real. People recognize that they may need current purchasing power unpredictably, such as for health emergencies. Simultaneously, productive capital is often difficult or impossible to sell quickly. Without financial intermediaries, the need for liquidity would be costly because a significant portion of savings would have to be invested in liquid investments with low yields. Financial intermediaries such as banks solve this issue by selling liquid liabilities, such as bank deposits, that can be converted to cash quickly while primarily investing in illiquid but high-return assets. This approach typically works since the need for cash is much more predictable in aggregate than on an individual level. A small amount of liquid investment, such as bank reserves, is sufficient to meet normal demands. However, Diamond and Dybvig highlighted that a financial system where intermediaries borrow liquid funds and invest in illiquid assets tends to have multiple equilibria. If everyone believes that the system works, it does. If, on the other hand, people expect others to withdraw funds en masse, they will rush to withdraw their own funds, thereby causing the collapse of banks that cannot liquidate their investments easily. The possibility of a bad equilibrium highlights the importance of public policy. Central banks and governments can prevent self-fulfilling panics by providing a safety net through lenders of last resort, deposit insurance, and other measures. Diamond and Dybvig's minimalist model demonstrated that banking is productive, but also creates systemic risk unless backed by public safety nets. From this insight, numerous implications follow. Now, despite its apparent simplicity, this model has some seriously broad implications. And if policymakers had understood these implications in the lead-up to the 2008 financial crisis, we may have been able to avoid the whole mess. Luckily, though, people like Bernanke eventually caught on, and we avoided a repeat of the Great Depression. So, what exactly does the Diamond-Dybvig model teach us? Well, for starters, it shows that a financial intermediary doesn't have to be a bank in the traditional sense to be subject to bank runs. Any financial player with liquid liabilities and illiquid assets is at risk of self-fulfilling panic. And as we saw in 2007-08, that risk is all too real. While economists were feeling pretty chill about financial risks at the time, the lack of deposit insurance and Fed lending options for shadow banks meant that there were runs on money market funds and investment banks that issued repo. Now, one common misconception is that bank runs damage the economy because they reduce the money supply. But that's not really the case. The Diamond-Dybvig model shows that the real damage comes from the destruction of wealth. And that's true regardless of whether or not a bank's liabilities are counted in the money supply. So, what's the solution? Well, according to Diamond-Dybvig, we need financial regulation for all institutions that engage in liquidity transformation. That includes not just depository institutions, but all financial intermediaries. But of course, providing a safety net can create moral hazard, so we need regulations in place to limit its exploitation. Now, that can be easier said than done. Identifying which institutions require regulation is no easy feat. But luckily, the Dodd-Frank Act does regulate systemically important institutions. It may not be perfect, but at least it's a step in the right direction. What were the criticisms? Historian Adam Tooze has been throwing some shade at the prize, claiming that it's just a way for mainstream economists to ignore the real threats of finance in our modern world. He thinks that the prize should have gone to thinkers like Hyman Minsky and Charles Kindleberger, who tackled the issue head-on. But is Tooze's criticism fair? Let's take a closer look. First off, we have to give props to Diamond and Dybvig for their work on bank runs. Sure, they didn't discover the concept, but their analysis helped to formalize it and bring attention to the self-fulfilling nature of these runs. And let's be real, sometimes formalization is key to understanding complex ideas. Now let's talk about Minsky and Kindleberger. While their work on financial instability is important, it's quite different from what Diamond and Dybvig were doing. Minsky and Kindleberger focused on cycles of exuberance and fear in financial behavior, while Diamond and Dybvig showed that even fundamentally, sound financial systems can experience destructive bank runs. So what does this all mean for policy? Well, Diamond-Dybvig's work provides some clear guidance on how to prevent financial panics. We need financial safety nets and regulations to contain the risks of panic. In contrast, Minsky and Kindleberger's work is more of a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency, but doesn't offer concrete solutions. It's a bit like the difference between pre- and post-Keynesian business cycle theory. Pre-Keynesian thinkers were focused on the excesses of booms and busts, while Keynes himself shifted the focus to understanding how economies can remain depressed for long periods. And, as we know, Keynesian policies like monetary and fiscal stimulus proved to be the right call during the Great Depression. So, while Minsky and Kindleberger's work is certainly valuable, Diamond-Dybvig's more practical approach is what we need right now. As much as we love a good verbal discussion, when it comes to policy, we need clear proposals and actionable steps. And that's what Diamond and Dybvig offer. On whether Ben Bernanke deserves the prize, other critics have been talking about Ben Bernanke's 1983 paper and whether it deserved that Nobel Prize. Now you might be thinking, why is this even a debate? The dude won a Nobel Prize, clearly he's a genius. But hear me out, fam. While Bernanke's paper was definitely important, it wasn't necessarily a game-changer like Diamond-Dybvig's work. Don't get me wrong, Bernanke's paper was great. It took the Diamond-Dybvig model and added some solid empirical evidence to back it up. Plus, it gave the Friedman-Schwartz claim a big ol' nah, not really when it comes to blaming monetary forces for the Depression. So yeah, it definitely mattered. But when you think about it, did it really change the game like Diamond-Dybvig did? That's the real question here. See, Nobel Prizes in economics are usually given for work that fundamentally shifts our understanding of the world. And while Bernanke's paper was excellent, it's not entirely clear that it hit that mark. Now, some folks out there might say that Bernanke got the prize because of his big-shot role as a policymaker. And honestly, that's not completely off base. But here's the thing. Bernanke was a big deal in the research world before he ever got into politics. He was all about incorporating finance into macroeconomics, which was pretty groundbreaking at the time. Giving Bernanke a Nobel Prize isn't completely crazy. We don't want to fall into the trap of devaluing academic research just because the researchers go on to do other things with their lives. That's not fair to anyone. So at the end of the day, adding Bernanke to the prize was a bit weird, but it's not indefensible. And hey, the dude's still a boss in the econ world, so let's give credit where credit's due. We all know that winning a Nobel Prize in economics is a big deal. It's awarded to those who have made groundbreaking research that fundamentally shifts our understanding of the world. And while there may be controversies around specific prize recipients, it's important to judge their work on its own merits, regardless of their later career paths. At the end of the day, the Nobel Prize in economics remains one of the highest honors anyone can achieve in the discipline. It continues to recognize the most significant contributions to the field, and it's always exciting to see who the next winner will be. So, what do you guys think about the Nobel Prize in economics? Let us know in the comments.